Hello. All right, everybody. Welcome to the third annual Hoosier Training. I'm Elizabeth Lee, for those of you that don't know me. I am so excited to have you all here, and I'm grateful that you made the investment in yourself and you showed up, and not only for yourself, but for the people around you, and not just your teammates, but your children, your husband, your family, your neighbors. I'm really excited to have Deb Erickson here. For those of you that don't know Deb, she's going to tell you about herself, but I had the pleasure of, let's see, when was it? Black Status Retreat 2017? I don't know, twice. I've seen her twice at Black Status Retreat, and then I was fortunate enough to be able to go to the Global Leadership Summit in England, and she spoke there, and there's just something really special about her and what she can help do inside. And so I have the pleasure of welcoming Deb Erickson to the stage.
All right, so you got something to write with, write on. You're going to take a ton of notes today. This is the biggest screen I think I've ever seen in my whole life. So, ready to rock and roll. So, tell me a little bit about yourself. Yeah, that's where you talk. You are what status? Yell it out. Good. And how long have you been in Unique? Yell it out. Okay, good. So you've been around a little while. Okay. And what's your goal? Yell it out. Oh, that was pretty consistent, wasn't it? Yeah, that was pretty fun. All right, cool. So we want to say hi to all of you at home who are joining us live stream and couldn't make it in today. I almost didn't make it. I got caught in weather last night and didn't end up landing until almost 3 o'clock this morning. Yeah. So help me. You got to kind of help me out with a little energy all day today. Got it? All right. So what we're going to talk about is being wired to win, and specifically, we're going to be talking about leadership. And the reason is obviously, you all, I know you are moving towards becoming more in your business than you are today. And so what we want to do, we're going to have a lot of fun. I created a fabulous little PowerPoint for you. It's very entertaining, but I really created it just so I'd have some fun pictures to show you. People always say to me, "Do you have an agenda? Did you put something together?" And I just have to tell you my personality. I could give you an agenda, but I wouldn't follow it. So, but we're going to have some fun. So let's talk about being wired to win. Did you know that your mind is either wired for success or wired for failure? Did you know that? And I'm going to show you today a little bit about how your brain is wired and what we are most concerned about in your wiring, as far as whether you are currently wired to become a leader, and if not, how we can change your wiring so that you can step into leadership with some ease. All right, so let's talk about this amazing brain that you have. First of all, there are two categories here when you come into the business arena that you really want to stay focused on. Business development, or I'm going to call it business mindset, and then business skill set. So how many of you feel like you've had a lot of training in business mindset? Okay, so some of you, but not a lot. How many of you feel like you had a lot of training in business skill set? Many more. Okay, so this is typically what happens is you come into the industry, come to a company, and immediately we go into skill set, business skill set training. And the truth is we ignore mindset too much. But in mindset training, you're managing your mindset, you are managing your mastering your emotions, and you're moving yourself into action. Does that make sense? Mindset, emotion, action. That's really what business mindset is all about. Okay, the other side of the equation is really skill building, like selling and sponsoring and presenting, could be Facebook Live, anything that is skill building. The second part is leadership skills, like teaching and coaching and training. And then finally, you've got the third category here, which is business growth strategies. Okay, So what I'm going to tell you is I'm going to pretty much guess that you haven't done a whole lot of this yet, because in general, most people don't get into strategies until they've been at the top of the market for several years. So once you become a black status and you have been around for 2, 3, 4 years, you're probably going to start doing heavily strategy stuff, right? And leadership coaching, teaching, mentoring, you usually would do about the time you get to purple, right? You want to start doing a lot of leadership kinds of training at that point. But business skills, selling, recruiting, you want to do all of that day one, the minute you show up. But let's talk about this over here, right? When we look at mindset, this stuff is critical day one as well. So which of these things do you think is most important? Mindset, and you guys would be right. Mindset is absolutely critical, because mindset, here's the key, guys. You can get lots of scripts, and you can get great sales training and all the stuff over here. But if you can't pick up the phone, if you can't get on Facebook Live, if you don't have confidence to talk to somebody, all of this does nothing. Does that make sense? In fact, I will go so far as to say this. If you get sales training and recruiting training and all this stuff over here, and you don't go use it, what do you say to yourself? What's the internal narrative? What's the story that you say to yourself? I'm a failure. I must not be very smart because I got all this training and I'm not using it. Anybody ever done that to yourself? Yeah, and so what I want you to know is this part is critical to lead this. So what we're going to do today is we're going to have a lot of fun playing with mindset training, right? I'm going to give you some tools. We're going to play some games together. I'm going to show you what your mind is doing to your business and give you a really good core to feel like see whether this is where you want to go or not. Make sense? All right. So now that I've kind of given you a little bit of the school teacher side, let me tell you my background. I am an educator. I actually went to school to be a teacher and a coach, basketball player. I was a basketball coach and softball coach and track and field coach. And so I did a lot of coaching. I did a lot of training. And I taught for about 6, 7, 8 years and realized I was not going to ever make any money, right? So as much as I loved kids, I was like, okay, I can't feed my family. So I left teaching and I went into sales and marketing because I thought I could make a lot of money. And I did. I made a ton of money in sales. I was shot to the top of the company. I changed companies several times, went into management, did sales recruiting, sales trainings. I traveled the country. And then guess what I had? No time, right? And so I thought, hey, there's got to be a better way. And that's when I found network marketing. And I fell in love with network marketing because it had the potential to let me use all of my skills and have it all, right? I could make some great money and I could have some time. And so I entered the industry. My first company was called Rexall. It isn't even around anymore. But I went to the top very quickly. In a year, I was in the top 1/10 of 1% of the company. So making great money, having great time freedom, I was enjoying the whole thing. I'm standing up, the very first convention I went to, I got on stage and held the big check. You ever seen pictures like that, right? I was holding the big check, big smile on my face. I went home and looked at the magazine later, and of all of the pictures of people holding checks, mine was the only one where I was the only one in the picture. Every other picture had, the leader brought their entire team, was able to get up on stage because they had all qualified. And I'm like, well, where are my people? And I realized that I had literally built the entire organization really myself. It was me and a whole bunch of low-level salespeople. Does that sound like anybody's organization? Okay? And it was like I wasn't being a leader of leaders. I was just dragging people. Some of you guys ever feel that way? It's like end of the month and you're just like dragging and pushing and pulling and bribing, whatever it takes to get people across the finish line. That was me. Whatever it took, right? We were dancing. The 25th of the month, I was exhausted. I didn't feel like I slept all the way to the end of the month. But I always qualified, and I always won the contest. I had a whole organization of contest winners. We won the contest every single time, but we weren't growing a business. I was winning contests. You guys feel it? And so about that time, the company got bought and sold 2 or 3 times, and I decided it wasn't the right company, so I left. But I was really frustrated. A couple things I was frustrated about was this. The guys on my team would make money like crazy, and the women on my team weren't making any money. And I kept thinking, what is the problem here? And as I started doing research, I realized that industry-wide, this isn't true for your company because Unique is pretty much mostly women, but the truth is industry-wide, women are 80% of the industry, but they only make 20% of the money. It sounds, well, just like normal reality everywhere else, right? It's like, what is going on here? How can we be so much of the industry and make so little? So as I started doing the research and looking at it, because it reminded me of something else. So my first year out of college, I got a teaching and a coaching assignment at a university, a small college, and they said, come in and coach the men's basketball team, because the guy's coach had a heart attack, and so I went in. Here I am, 5'2", right, and this guy's back there like 6'5", right, big. I would take a chair, and I'd stand on the chair in the huddle to talk to them, and I still had to look up on a chair. Right? But I got to use all of my Coach Erickson stuff. All the stuff I had used as an athlete, all the stuff I had used, growing up through school, and everything I'd learned in school about how to be a great coach, I got to learn it all. So I'd get in the huddle with everybody. I'm like, come on, guys, let's go, let's get it going. I'd get in their face, get your butt out there, what are you doing? And all of that aggressive, in-your-face stuff, because that's what I'd learned as an athlete. And it worked. It worked. We won the conference that year, first year ever. So when the other coach came back, they came to me and they said, Deb, that was such an incredible year. You're amazing. How about you coach the women's team? And I'm like, yeah, bring it on, the women's team, right? So I got in the huddle the very first day, and I get in their face, come on, let's go, move your butts. And they're like starting to cry. Why is she so angry? We haven't done anything. I'm like, there's no crying in basketball. What are you doing? All right? Well, I realized very quickly men and women had to be coached very differently, right? And so that was the beginning. And by the way, that was like the worst coaching year of my life. We lost everything. So how do you go from being like coach of the year to loser, right? I was like, how did that happen? And what I realized, it wasn't my knowledge base. It wasn't whether or not I could teach them to do, left-handed layup. It wasn't that. It had to do something with the mindset stuff. And so after I had the same experience in business, I decided I got to go back to school, figure this out. So I'm going to get a quick drink here. So what I decided was I was going to go work on my counseling degree, so my master's in counseling. And it didn't take me very long to realize I didn't want to be a therapist, right? That therapy was really not going to help my business growth. And that's when I discovered neuroscience, which is what I'm going to teach you today. I'm going to teach you the ins and outs of neuroscience just enough, and take a deep breath. Don't worry about the technical side of this, because I'm teaching it from Coach Erickson perspective. Okay, so it's going to be fun, it's going to be easy, but you're going to learn a lot of science today about why your mind does what your mind does. So let me show you a little bit more. So what we want to do here is we're going to talk about leadership duplication. I'm going to show you each slide a little smaller, but this is the big picture. So I want you to see that there is a spiral down. You guys see it? A spiral down. This is the leadership duplication that happens for most people when they join this industry, okay? So I'm going to take it apart and show it to you one at a time. That way you can read a little bit better. So here's what happens. You show up and you have an internal brain blueprint. And your leadership blueprint has to do with your success identity, your self-esteem, your mental limiters, your emotional blocks, your habitual patterns, and your past programming. So in other words, you're showing up with your junk, your stuff, your baggage. Does that make sense? Okay? So everything in your past, all your failures, all your negatives, all your doubts, all your limits, all that stuff, you show up in this business with it. Now, once you show up with it, here's the really interesting thing, is that you want to become a leader. So you show up and you say, hey, I want to be black status. That's what you guys said at the beginning, right? I want to be black status. So when you want to be a black status, you have to learn how to be your own boss. You really need entrepreneurial skills, right? You have to learn how to sponsor and promote, recruit other people, develop builders, and duplicate your identity, your leadership identity. Does it make sense so far? Okay, here's the problem. Okay, first of all, your personal limiters cause you to go into avoidance of anything that scares you. Would you agree with that? You tend to avoid the things that scare you. And so when you avoid the things that scare you, you tend to pick and choose selling and recruiting activities that are a match to you. They're easier to you. Okay? And as you do that, your business becomes lopsided. So you don't do everything you're taught. You only do the things that don't scare you on a regular basis. Would you agree? Okay. So now what happens is your lopsided business becomes your standard. And because it's your standard, you only teach and duplicate the thing that you're comfortable with. And then something really scary happens. You begin to recruit down to the level of your comfort. Okay? And I'm going to talk more about recruiting this afternoon. But basically what's happening is you're recruiting down where you're nice and comfortable. And as you do that, you have to resort to lower level motivation skills to get your team moving. Okay, I'm going to blow you guys away. If you have to drag and push and pull and plead and bribe and all of that, then you've got an entire team of lower level team. Okay? High level people have internal motivation. We're going to talk about that today as well. Okay, how do you create that? But I want you to know that if you had high level people on your team, you'd be chasing them. You'd be running after them. You'd be holding on for dear life. Tiger by the tail. So if you are dragging, it means this, right? And by the way, you can't blame them because it comes back to you. Okay, you are recruiting people who match your fear, basically your fear level. Okay? All right, let's keep going because it gets worse. Not letting you off the hook yet. I will, but not yet. Personal limiters. Okay, so your personal limiters continue unchecked, and so you resist high-level ideas and strategies. You think you can't, and so you end up getting stuck. And then guess what? What you think is what you teach. So once you get stuck, they get stuck. Yep. All right. And then finally, here's our last. The cycle repeats itself over and over and over again. And this is where the spiral down begins to happen. You guys get it? Is that it just goes down and down and down and down and down. Because they bring their stuff, and the people they recruit bring their stuff. It gets worse and worse. So is it all bad news? No. But we have to reverse the cycle. I just want you guys to see it. So this becomes you. Would you agree? Uh-huh. And if you keep doing what you're doing, then guess what? You're duplicating that. So then it looks kind of like this. Okay? So if this is you, all it means is you're recruiting down, the spiral is going down, and we got to stop it. Otherwise, what happens is that every single generation becomes weaker, less focused, less dedicated, less committed, and you will do more dragging to keep them going. So if you're dragging, what I really want you to do is say, number one, I got some of the wrong people on my team. That's number one. But number two is you got to look here first, because you're the one that originate. You set the bar on where the whole thing started. Okay? The good news is you can change that today. Okay? All right. So let's have some fun. How did I get my business blueprint? How did it get started to begin with? Now that we kind of set the stage for what it is and what it isn't, now let's talk about what your blueprint is and how you got it. So your blueprint, guys, is it's a collection of your core beliefs, your past files, your personal programming. It's your past. Things people said to you, experiences that you had. Any past files means memories. All the memories, all the stuff. All of that becomes your leadership blueprint. Okay? And so, how many of you in the room have ever failed at anything? Raise your hand. Okay, almost everybody. So we have failure files. How many of you took that failure personally? Raise your hand. A lot of you. So now you've personalized the failure. Okay, how many of you have felt fear? Almost everybody. Okay, how many of you have done whatever you could do to avoid that thing that you're afraid of so it doesn't happen again? You guys getting the picture here, right? How many of you have some kind of you had some kind of sexual, mental, emotional, psychological, physical abuse happen to you as a child? Okay, a lot. So you guys get the feeling is that all of this stuff is what you are bringing into the business. So you are literally carrying it all every single day into the business. Okay? All right, so since that is what your blueprint is made of, let's talk a little bit about what the brain does, because it actually fills in the gap. So let me show you what that means. Who's a good reader in the room? A really good public reader? Good. Come on down. Thanks for volunteering. So I'm going to give you the mic, and I'm going to put something up on the screen, and I want you to read it. Okay? Okay. So can you see? Just maybe stand right there. Here we go. Ready?
I could believe that I could understand what I was reading. The phenomenal power of the human mind, according to a research at Cambridge University. It doesn't matter in what order the letters in a word are. Only important thing is that the first and last letter be in the right place. The rest can be a total mess, and you can still read it without a problem. This is because the human mind does not read every letter by itself, but the word as a whole. Amazing, eh?
Thank you. Nice job. Give her a hand. So isn't that really something? Right? What it really means is that you do not have to have it all the pieces, and the brain will put together its own story. It guesses. It makes stuff up. Most scientists believe that about 95% of your personal identity, your self-esteem, your self-identity, right? What you think you can and can't do, 95% of that is made up. It is not true, but it's stuff that your brain filled in the gaps and said, I can't do that, I'm not good at that. 95%. So when you say to me, I can't do that, Deb, I'm going to say, BS. Right? Because that's just a belief system. BS. Belief system. It's just your belief system that you can't do something that you really can do. However, your brain already wrote it out and said that's the way it is. And here's the scary thing. Once your brain commits to a truth, right, and I'm going to use air quotes. Once your brain commits to something being true, it holds on to it, and it basically creates what we call a blind spot, scartoma. So let me show you how that works. Well, first, let's talk about the difference between your desire and your belief. So you get it that your brain is creating these blind spots. Once you get a picture in your mind, you absolutely will hold on to it no matter what. I'll give you a great example. I learned kind of the power of the mind. My very first job in sales, I showed up in sales, and by the way, I'm very dyslexic, so that little demonstration back there, that's kind of how all words look to me. Just so you know, that's kind of how, when I open a book, that's what it looks like. So I'm guessing all the time. I wrote a book at one point, I'll tell you all about that. But then later somebody said, Dad, put it on audio. It would really be good to hear the author reading the book. And I'm like, okay, but don't look at the book while I'm reading it, because what I read will like be original. So people who buy the audio, it's like, yeah, it's kind of different from the book. I'm like, I know, it's better, right? Because I'm just making stuff up as I go. Anyway, I figured, and by the way, when I was growing up, nobody understood dyslexia. All they knew is that you were special ed, because couldn't read, couldn't write, couldn't do math. And nobody figured that out really until I was, the year I went to college is the year they kind of started creating testing around it. And the only reason I got to go to college was they wanted me in the special program. So I was an underperforming special kid who everybody said, but she's got incredible talent, she should be okay. And so they sent me off to college and gave me this test, and they said, oh, you're dyslexic. Just guess at everything. So what I'll tell you is, if it's in perspective in a paragraph, I can guess right about 95% of the time. If a word is just sitting there by itself, I will guess wrong almost all the time. Because I pretty much guess what the word is based on the first letter. So that, you know, what chance do you have of getting it right that time? But if it's all good here, right, if it's all together, I could get it right a lot. Well, I had a self-esteem that said I was dumb, that I would never amount to anything. That's what all my early teachers told me. You're never going to amount to anything. Better learn a trade, because she's not very sharp. And she's never going to be successful in anything. And, you know, at one point they were talking about putting me in a home, okay, because I struggled reading. And it was mostly, you guys get it? It's like we didn't understand it. But that doesn't matter, because that's my programming now. I struggle every day against the I'm not smart enough. I'm not enough. You guys get it? Because it's part of my early programming. So I started selling. I got into sales, and somebody saw my ability. My first coach, he said, you're going to be great at this. And I'm like, I was selling life insurance. This is back before a lot of laptops. I'm kind of showing my age. So we had to hand calculate formulas. Right, and I was having a hard time reading the policies, and I couldn't do the math for the calculations. And he said, "No worries, don't do any of that. All I want you to do is show up with all of your big Coach Erickson energy, and I just want you to show up and ask for the sale." So here was my sales pitch. I'd walk in, husband and wife sitting here. You pretend to be the guy, and I would say, "Dude, if you die, how is she going to take care of the 6 kids?" Right? And she'd look at him and she'd say, "Yeah, what's the plan?" You know? And I'm like, "Yeah, what's the plan?" I just was always on her side. And so he'd be like, "Well, I don't really have a plan." And so I'd be like, "You got to have a plan. I can't believe you don't have a plan. What's going to happen?" So then I'd go to her and I'd say, "Tell me what life would be like if you didn't have that income. If you didn't have him coming home and helping every day, what's going to happen?" And then it wasn't long before I could get her crying. You know, "I can't believe you're doing this to us. We're all alone." And so I get her all emotional, right? And he's like, "Nothing's even happened, honey." I'm like, "Yeah, but it could. It could." Right? So let's not take any chances. Pull out your checkbook, write me a blank check, sign it, and I'll get my company to write all the numbers out for you tomorrow. I walked out with a check like 98% of the time. I was Rookie of the Year for the entire country, and couldn't tell you the difference between whole life and part life and some life and term life. Because here's the thing, information didn't help me. It only confused me. What I knew was, the truth was, he really loved his family and wanted to take good care of them. And once I could put them in the emotional state of that, I got a blank check. You guys get it? So I was so successful the first year. I was Rookie of the Year. So they said, "Dad, we're going to send you to Chicago. You're going to go to this fancy awards banquet." and get a trophy for being Rookie of the Year. Now, I'm an athlete, and I was a PE teacher for years, so I was like, hey, man, trophies? Are you kidding me? Hardware. I love winning awards. So I was like, yeah, let's go. So I was all excited about going until about a week out, my best friend came to me, and she said, what are you going to wear? I was like, oh, I hadn't even thought about that. She's like, no, this is a really big deal. You got to get all duded up in. And so she said, let me go shopping for you. So she bought me those heels. Now, this is back in the late 70s, okay, late 70s. So those heels were like the stilettos, but they were like the size of a toothpick, you know? And it had to be 8 or 10 inches. They were huge. So, I mean, I felt like I was getting a nosebleed. It elevated me so high, right? So I was having trouble walking in them because I'd never been out of my Nikes before. And then she bought me this 3-piece white polyester suit. Now, in the old days, polyester was much different than it is today. But in the old, what it was like a 3-piece white suit that was skin tight all the way past my knees and then flared. So then you had to do this, right, to walk it all, right? And then we had these poofy, fluffy little balls of whatever, color. And so we had one at my neck and one in my hair. I was all decked out, all duded up. And so she said, now if you really want to make an entrance, you come in a little late. I'm like, what do you mean? And she said, just a little late. And that way you can kind of make your entrance into the room, because you are, right? You're really the guest of honor. So I was like, okay, I'll be a little late. Well, I wasn't really prepared for what I walked into. First of all, I was late, so they gave my seat away on stage. There were thousands of people in this room, thousands of people. They were all at these tables. Biggest room I'd ever seen. And I had to sit at the back table. Now, as I'm sitting at the back table, remember, I've got that thing where I can't hardly walk. I'm in heels that I'm not trained and authorized to wear. And I'm sitting in the back with low self-esteem and doubt out the wazoo, where I'm saying to myself, something bad's going to happen. I just know something bad's going to happen. I'm such a klutz. I'm not very smart. I'm going to get up there. Something horrible's going to happen. So the whole way through dinner, I am practicing mentally the failure that is about to happen. You ever done that? You ever practiced before you got on Facebook Live and you're like, oh, it's not going to work, right? So I was practicing all the things that could go wrong. When they got ready to do the awards, they turned down the house lights and they had these strobes from all over the room that kind of like circled the audience. You felt like you were at the Oscars. It's like all over and then would focus on you and follow you to the stage. So the whole time I'm watching this, my eyes are getting bigger, my heart's pounding, because I'm like, holy, what's going to happen here. Everything, I just knew it was all going to get bad, right? And right at the last second, I leaned over to my date and I said, watch me do something stupid and like trip on the stage. Bad thing to say. I got all the way to the edge of the stage, and right at the edge, that heel, that long, skinny heel, got caught on the edge of the stage. And I'm standing here fighting with it, and the guy's, calling my name like 3 or 4 times, like, come on, and I'm fighting. Finally, I thought, hey, I'm a PE teacher. When something doesn't work the first time, no problem. You just force it really hard. So when I, really hard, it popped the heel off. The heel went down the stairs, and my shoe came off and went soaring across the stage. So as my shoe is soaring across the stage, here's the MC. He's like ducking, right? The shoe flies by. Oh, but that's not the worst part of the story. So as I really hard, it literally threw me horizontal. And I did the most gorgeous chest-first dive across the stage, right? And as I'm sliding in, all the memories from softball came back. I slid in and I wrapped my arms around him, kind of like you would second base, like that. And he didn't know what to do, so he went, safe. Formal banquet. Now, that's bad, but that's not the worst part of the story. So polyester, right? Old polyester had that, it would snag. You know what I'm talking about? It kind of would pull. So my suit hit the stage and grabbed on. But I just kept right on sliding. So as I'm sliding, my skirt, I could hear it. My skirt split from the slit in the back all the way up to the top and popped open. It's hanging in front by a thread. And this is the old style skirts where your slip is inside, sewn inside, right? So everything ripped. I am completely exposed in back. The only good thing that happened is this was well before the invention of thongs. That wouldn't have been a good thing. So here I am, right? I stand up, I grab the back of my skirt. Oh, and this thing in front of my face, right? So I'm holding this thing out of my way, grabbing my skirt, one shoe on and one shoe, doing this across the stage, right? I was trying to get behind the podium because I thought if I could just get behind the podium, everything will be okay. I can hide. Well, as I get behind the podium, I'm trying to kind of get back in my body because, quite honestly, I'm having an out-of-body moment, right? I'm thinking to myself, what's next? What's next? Oh, yeah, my speech. I pull my speech out like anybody cares what I have to say, right? I pull my speech out. I look up at the audience, getting ready to accept my Rookie of the Year, you know. They are laughing so hard, they're falling off their chairs. Women have got mascara trails running down their cheeks, right? And the worst part is the guy right here in the front seat. He had just taken a big swig of Coke. He is laughing so hard that he's got Coke fuzz coming up his nose. Guy's got it. So this moment that should have been my moment of glory got stolen by my own mindset. Because I said, watch me trip. And when I said watch me trip, my brain said, I wonder what that would look like. I know, it'll look like this. So once my brain got a picture, boom, my body delivered. You guys get it? This is how your brain works. You get a picture, and then it is literally a command to go forth and create it. You guys get it? And your brain will fill in the gaps and create pictures that match your beliefs. This is why your blueprint is so critical, guys, because it is literally creating the picture that your brain will create for your business, okay? So let me show you how that happens, and it's basically the conversation between desire and belief. What's more important, what you want or whether you believe you can have it or not? Desire or belief? Belief. All right, let's talk about it. Conscious mind. This is my conscious mind. I call her Tawanda. She's a wild woman. She goes Mach 3 with her hair on fire, right? This is where desire lives, awareness, thinking processes, but it's only 3% of the power. So I don't care what kind of, wild mama you are. If you decide you want something, I gotta have this. I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna go get black and I'm gonna do it right now. Great, but that's only 3% of the power that lives there. Here's some weaknesses in your conscious mind. Number one, your conscious mind only stays focused about let me say it this way. You lose focus every 8 to 10 seconds. 8 to 10 seconds, you are losing focus. So what that means is I got to stand up here and dance and put cool things up here because I'm losing you every 8 to 10 seconds. And you know what? It's gotten worse since cell phones, right, became smartphones because now you have a screen to distract you very, very quickly. What they're saying is our entire new generations are now losing focus at the rate of closer to 4 to 5 seconds because of technology. Okay, so your kids could be looking at the complete inability to focus, period. How scary is that, right? And by the way, what is it that holds focus? Fast-moving pictures and images and sound and light and all that because of screens, which means that what tends to happen is we come to reality and it feels a little boring because it's not dancing for us. You guys got it? All right, so and that's not all. Short-term memory, guess how quickly you forget things? Every 20 seconds. That's why you meet somebody at an event, and you say, hi, my name is, and turn around, and you're like, what did she say her name was? You guys have ever had that? Okay, part of what's happening is Tawanda's the one that's listening, and she probably got distracted, but even if she was paying attention, you are going to lose it so fast. That's why I say write it down. If it's important, write it down. Because even under the best of circumstances, you are going to lose it every few seconds. So when you show up, your Tawanda shows up at a convention or a leadership event, and you say, that's it, this is the year, I'm going to be a black, let's go for it. 2 seconds later, you're like, ooh, that's shiny, what is that? Right? And then after you've gotten distracted, what is that shiny thing? The next thing you're like, what was I saying? What was my goal? Oh yeah, black, we're going for black. Oh, look at that over there. It's constant. You guys feel it? Have you seen your people do this? Okay? They are constantly being distracted. So where does the real power lie? It lies in the subconscious mind. I call her Hilga. She's kind of like the librarian. Hilga was my grandmother's name. So the idea is this is kind of that go by the rules personality, right? So the subconscious mind has 97% of the power. This is where your belief lies, right? She runs the show, autopilot. Everything kind of to her is happening in the here and now. And here's her biggest weakness. She's committed to follow the programming no matter whether it's good for you or not. So if your programming from your childhood was that you can't, that you're not enough, right? That it'll never happen for you, that you're not smart enough, you're not pretty enough, you're not whatever, right? If you believe, if you have fears and anxieties, right, at all, then she's the one running the show for you. You guys get it? She's got the one, everything is running on automatic pilot. So it's a good thing automatic pilot is happening here, by the way, because what we're really saying is she's in charge of things like breathing, which is good, because if Tawanda was in charge, she'd forgotten already. You'd be gone. But she's also in charge of your business. This chick is in charge of your business. And she is running the show based on the rules that you've set up in your business, based on your past experience, your past programming. You guys get this? This is why your blueprint is so critical, because she's the one running the show. So who is it that helped me trip that day? It was her. Okay? As much as I would love to say it was Tawanda being, showing off and being reckless, the truth is, I have said 1,000,000 times, I'm such a klutz. I have said 1,000,000 times, I'm not very smart. I've said 1,000,000 times those things that now she becomes the voice in my head. You guys get it? And that's what's happening to you. You've got a voice in your head that's running the show. This is where belief lies. 97% of the power. So if you want it really bad, okay, but you don't believe it's possible, which one wins? Belief. You guys get it? Good. All right. Let's do a little test. I told you that there was a blind spot, right? That your brain, once you believe something, you own it. So let's play with it. I want you to close your eyes. I want to show you how powerful this is. Close your eyes, and I want you to act in your imagination. I want you to imagine you're driving down the road, and you come up to a stop sign. How many sides does the stop sign have? Yell it out. 8. Good. And what are the colors? Red and white. Good. Just yell it right out, guys. And it's okay if you thought it was 6, but just yell it right out.